Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back to Going In Raw Countout. It's a top 10 wrestling show right here at youtube.com/Steven Larson. And it's also available wherever fine podcasts can be found if you're listening to us in the audio realm. Leave us a rating, review, or a comment. It really does help boost the exposure of the show. We're also on the Patreon at patreon.com/Steven Larson. We have a variety of reward tiers over there, Larson, including the recently, we decided to start putting, so we'd like live stream on Twitch sometimes, like we did, well, today's Friday, and it's going up Saturday, and we cursed a lot because we were playing WWE 2K Towers. We're trying to win that $1 million.
So frustrating.
I'm just going to put, it's on the Twitch channel. It's at the Twitch channel if you want to check it out there. But I'm also putting it on the Patreon for like the $1 patrons.
Good.
So if you want to hear us curse during playing video games, you could do it because we're not going to put it up on the proper YouTube channel. Anyways, we have a variety, or I'm sorry, we got a bunch of new patrons in. I'm going to give them some shout outs.
Good idea. Great idea.
John Dix, Eric Combs, Matthew J. Richards, Ethan Benjamin, Gordo Loco, and El Mezqueto. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, everybody.
It really goes a long way. Even
really
$1 goes a long way.
Truly does.
Of course, past couple week or two, the past week or two have been pretty interesting for the world of pro wrestling.
That it has.
A new company has emerged, Larson, All Eat Wrestling.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are saying, well, are they going to compete with WWE? How can they compete with WWE? Who's going to compete with WWE? Okay, listen. They haven't even put on their next show yet. We don't know what network they're going to be airing out. We don't know really much about them except that they have like 9 people signed to the company. Quality names.
Yes, all.
They got a dedicated fan base. I wish them well. But it also got us thinking, who out there actually has competed with WWE?
Or at least tried.
There's basically one company, but a bunch have tried.
Yeah.
And if the stars had aligned, some of these companies might have actually succeeded. Others, it would have taken a bit more than stars aligning, but the seeds were there. For each of these companies, I think the seeds were there, at least.
Well, I think they all kind of hit the basic criteria. You needed a roster with decent talent.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
You needed a TV deal that at least had something resembling a national reach.
In almost every situation here, talent has been poached from these places by WWE.
That's been the thing since the early 80s, man.
Yeah, totally.
It's hard for anybody to keep their talent because WWE will open up their checkbook.
But that's been the most interesting thing about All Elite Wrestling so far is that WWE has thrown a lot.
I mean, of what Meltzer said about the offers extended to the Young Bucks. Wow. And they still elected not to go there, which is, I think, reason number one why I'd consider All Elite Wrestling, an early, solid competitor to WWE. In that, if they're able to prevent WWE from doing business as usual, you're kind of competing with them in a way. Yeah.
But we're going to get right into this. All Elite Wrestling is on this list, very low, but not as low as number 10.
10.
So here it goes. Number 10.
10.
ECW.
Now, here's the thing. For ECW to truly compete on a national level with WWF at the time, they would have had to have watered down their product. Now, when they finally got their national TV deal in 1999,
it was on TNN.
TNN, yeah. It eventually became the highest rated show on the network. Mm-hmm. I don't know what else was on other than country music videos at the time.
Which is surprising because I think country music videos at the time especially were pretty popular.
Oh, that was like a boon period for country music, Garth
Toby
Brooks.
Keith.
Yeah, Toby Keith. Toby Keith was actually later.
Toby Keith was actually, Garth Brooks was actually earlier.
Earlier, yeah. This was after Alan Jackson.
Who was it
John Michael Montgomery.
Okay, I don't even know who that is. The
Faith Hill, Tim McGraw.
Yes.
Faith Hill, Tim McGraw.
What about the
Brooks and Dunn?
No, the 3 girls in that
Dixie Chicks.
Yes,
Dixie Chicks. Yes, very much. This is the Dixie Chicks era of.
So it was the Dixie Chicks and ECW on the same network.
Yeah.
Right, the Nashville network.
Yeah.
Okay. They had all sorts of problems with the TNN not wanting them to do their thing.
Man. And then eventually they kicked them off their network so they could bring Raw over.
That's right.
Man, it's supposed to be like a 3-year deal, and a year into it, TNN goes, "No, we want WWE here with Dixie Chicks and Tim McGraw and Faith Hill.
Yeah.
Not ECW.
But if you look at, the sad thing about ECW is that, man, they just got picked apart by everybody.
Yeah, man.
Like Bischoff started stealing their luchadors and their cruiserweights.
And eventually he took Sandman and called him Hardcore Hack.
WWF.
I mean, come on. Sandman's great and all in ECW.
Yeah.
He's not going to be able to do anything fun in WCW.
Talk about
especially named
censorship
Hardcore Hack.
Yeah, that was kind of bunk.
And then they just called him Hack. They just took the hardcore part out of it.
That was pretty bunk.
Remember when he was the Surfer?
Yeah,
Sandman?
that was great. Yeah. Surfer Sandman. Yeah, that was great. That was awesome.
Before he became like Hardcore Sandman?
Yeah.
In Eastern Championship Wrestling. Anyway, we're getting way off base. I feel this could be kind of a goofy episode of Countdown.
I think so too.
So the last thing we got to shoot today on a Friday.
Woo! So yeah, man, I think like and then on top of that, like Paul Heyman seemed to be just a terrible businessman on top of that. Apparently he's a fantastic motivational speaker.
Yeah.
He was able to convince a lot of these wrestlers that wrestling for nothing was okay. He also convinced them that wrestling without a paycheck was, like, oh yeah, the paycheck's in the mail. Just go out there and take 15 unprotected headshots.
This is interesting. So this is just from Wikipedia. So, but apparently at the time of ECW's closure, in early 2001, April 2001, they had liabilities that totaled almost $9 million. And some of this is interesting. There was wrestlers listed as people he owed money to, and apparently it ranged from $2 for Sabu.
That's weird.
He owed Sabu $2. RVD, though, $150,000.
It's a pretty big discrepancy there.
Shane Douglas, $145,000. Tommy
Ouch.
Dreamer, $100,000.
Ouch.
Rhino, $50,000. Francine, almost $50,000.
Man, but people loved working for Paul Heyman.
I think they believed in what he was trying to do.
Yeah, and for a spell for like 3 years there, their product was like killer. It really was. It was great. And
until everybody started leaving.
You see, everybody started leaving. People would spend, just a moment there and then move on to one of the big two brands. And then Paul Heyman had problems also with the pay-per-view companies. Like they wouldn't be, they started not to pony up. I think he said at one point, like one of those pay-per-view companies owed him like $2 million. And so it was difficult at that point to then pay his wrestlers because, et cetera, and then he would just be dumping money into that thing left and right.
Yeah. And they always had kind of a weird relationship with WWF.
Yeah, that was weird.
Because like in 96, I think early 97, there was like a cross-promotional thing that had Lawler involved. And I guess it was also USWA was involved somewhat. And then I thought, it was in the Heyman documentary or something else where Vince wasn't he sending Paul Heyman money?
Yeah, I think he was floating him checks. Yeah.
To keep the company afloat. And there's kind of talent exchanges, and like Al Snow was sent down there.
Yeah.
To ECW, when he wasn't Leaf Cassidy anymore.
Yeah.
To come up with a new gimmick and stuff, so...
Yeah, kind of weird, but I don't know, man. Maybe if they had a network that really, really believed in them. I mean, like you said, I'm not sure. ECW to me always felt like the kind of thing that made complete and total sense at the time for what it was. And if it grew and became more popular, it would simply die. And that's basically what happened. Because if you're going to grow, you need more of an audience. And, when you have stuff happening like the mass transit incident, people aren't going to be into that. Nobody wants to see that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's not terribly surprising. Could they have competed with WWE? Like the Stars super would have had to have aligned. But I think Paul Heyman probably likes to think so. So that's got some validity to it.
Yeah.
Moving on, number 9. All Elite Wrestling. We're just going to talk about them right now. Hey, look, like we said, Meltzer in the newsletter this week mentioned that WWE offered the Young Bucks a deal.
AJ
Styles money, and they would have a 6-month window where they could get out of their 3-year deal if they didn't like their creative. And they already had a path out. Triple H already came prepared with a path outlined from the Rumble
to Mania.
Wow. Like a huge thing.
And they still said no.
There's also been reports that WWE wrestlers, sort of obviously off the record, are sort of waiting to see how legit All Elite is, what their TV looks like.
Yeah, that's going to be the massive thing. If they get
that's going to be the big thing.
If they get a TV deal with a nationwide carrier or a station like TBS, like TNT,
But
very funny. They know drama.
True,
that's going to be huge because that's a reach that's going to rival USA, if not surpass it. I don't know if USA, because USA is like what 90 million homes.
I would imagine it's sort of comparable.
Yeah,
like,
probably comparable.
Probably in the same. Like whenever I think of TNT, I think, oh yeah, USA.
Yeah, it's all on
right
basic
there.
cable packages. Yeah,
Right, exactly. Yeah. So there's that, and there's obviously Jericho himself said, there's 2 good TV deals on the table. That's why he was confident signing there as opposed to WWE.
Mm-hmm. And apparently he received the best contract of his career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whether strictly from a financial standpoint or a combination of financial plus dates he has to work, who knows? But it seems like a pretty sweetheart deal.
They have the financial backing of the 215th most rich person on the planet.
Oh, okay.
It's either, I think he's in the top 200 or 120. I think he's like top 200.
He's worth several $1 billion.
He's worth around $7 billion. Incidentally, Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy, he's about to go through a divorce.
He's going to lose half of his fortune.
He doesn't have a prenup. So now him and his wife are going to be tied for 7th richest person in the world. They're going to drop from 1st to 7th tied. Hit that guy up for some wrestling money.
We might have his mind on other things right now.
Probably. For one thing, you want to get a piece of Jeff Bezos. Now you're going to be signing a prenup if you're going to be marrying that dude. Believe that. Anyways. All Elite Wrestling. The jury's still out, but obviously all the excitement over it, plus a lot of people who are kind of hating on it. Obviously they've captured something. They're on the road to something. They seem to have some fun. Virtually every single one of these, it all boils down to, is there a vision behind the product, and can people put their egos aside and do what's best for the product? And basically, all these on this list haven't been able to do that.
Just wait till we talk about Pro Wrestling USA.
Exactly. So, if, they've got a lot of money, they've got good heads. It's just, the thing is the audience out there, and are advertisers out there for the audience? 20 years ago, one of the reasons, going back to ECW, that it didn't work is because the advertising dollars for pro wrestling, even during its biggest boom period in the Attitude Era, weren't there. Advertisers still did not believe in the wrestling dollar. That probably have changed. By and large, thanks to WWE's PG era, where they've opened things up to families.
Now advertisers just rule to throw all sorts of dollars.
I would think that's changed the perception, they've sort of created this new landscape where maybe something like All Elite Wrestling can work. We've already seen that they've been able to, I'm not going to say poach, but they've been able to prevent some big free agent names from going there. Other people might be second guessing, oh, maybe I don't want to go to WWE, maybe I want to go to All Elite Wrestling. Moving on, number 8. Wrestling Society X.
So this show aired on MTV, was apparently funded by MTV.
Yeah.
And if you look at the talent roster, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
It's really impressive.
The first match was Jack Evans versus Matt Sydal.
Yeah.
Seth Rollins was in there.
Yeah.
There was some kind of interesting. There were a couple of holdovers from XPW.
Yeah.
Chris Kloss, their announcer, was the announcer for XPW.
And Kid Chaos
was there.
Was
the Hardcore Kid was there, who also ended up in WWE.
No, Vic Grimes was.
He was the guy that stabbed John Cena. Scorpio Sky was there. That's interesting.
Yeah, I guess so.
Wow, look at that. So yeah, this aired on MTV. And
Matt Cross too.
Like you've sort of said. Oh wow, that's cool. Like you've sort of said.
Oh yeah, X-Pac.
And X-Pac, that's right. Vampiro too. Vampiro was like one of their bookers. Yeah, like you said, if you have a big national TV deal, then you might have a chance. Justin Credible is there. You might have a chance to compete with WWE. Brian Zane, like 4 years ago, I watched a bit of his video last night. He did a great video on Wrestling Society X, and he said it's the perfect wrestling promotion for people with attention deficit disorder.
Yeah. Because
he was like, all the matches was just high spot after high spot. They did the thing where there were no mats on the outside, but I swear every time Seidel, I just watched the first match, Seidel and Jack Evans got in the ring, They were basically just setting up to do a spot where they would jump down from outside the ring to the floor. And we don't have concretes here. Or we don't have mats on our floor. It's just concrete.
Oh my god.
That's not a good thing, man. That's not a good thing.
I remember watching some of the early episodes. And yeah, like production value was all over the place.
But here's the thing. There were only early episodes because it only lasted 10 episodes.
Well, I think only 9 episodes.
9 were aired and 10 the last one didn't make the cut. I don't know if it's on your. Do you think it's on your DVD? The unaired one?
Check.
I don't know.
But I like looking here on Wikipedia. So it ran from January 30th, 2007 to March 14th, 2007. And every main event is some sort of, not every, but basically every main event is some sort of weird gimmick match.
Yeah.
Exploding cage match, tables, ladders, and cervezas. Isn't there a piranha one too? Something involving piranhas. I thought. Oh yeah, there's a piranha tank death match. Oh, that was the unaired one.
I'm
piranha
sad
tank
that
death match and exploding cage time bomb match.
Man, that sounds right for a tape trade episode.
It's the thing where it's like they were taking what worked with ECW almost a decade prior and thinking it would still work in 2006.
Yeah.
But then you found this quote here.
Yeah, this was good. There was a great article back in 2014. I'll link to it in the description. And the article was actually it was talking about the launch of Lucha Underground and the history of other promotions competing or attempting to compete with WWE. And one of the people they reached out to was, I think his name is Kevin Kleinrock.
Yeah.
And he was a producer on Wrestling Society X.
And he said because it was funded by the network, quote, and they wanted something to explode or someone to get electrocuted almost every week. It had to be crazy, so we had standards and practices, worried about kids doing these things at home, and executives worried about fans getting bored by traditional wrestling. So that's interesting. You had, standards and practices. People, you'd always hear that division mentioned in WCW. Trying to keep it so it's TV safe. They had executives over at MTV that wanted more crazy stuff to happen, so people would thinking that's why people would tune in.
This is funny, though, because the next quote here is the article goes on. After sinking $3.6 million into the venture, Kleinrock claims MTV lost interest. We were on for 4 weeks, and they pretty much showed the rest of the episodes in a marathon. They were done with it.
This quote's pretty good from Kevin Kleinrock. Quote, when you try to make it too different from WWE, you turn off the... When you try to make it too different from WWE, do you turn off the average wrestling fan too much? But on the other hand, when you try to duplicate WWE, you get TNA or WWE Light. Ring of Honor is great, but they can't compete on the entertainment or production side.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, like WWE is essentially sort of the standard in pro wrestling. And so that's one big question we have about All Elite Wrestling is, what are they going to look like? What are they going to look like? What are they going to present? Is it going to look like All In? Are they going to have snazzier production value? What are their story builds going to look like? What are their backstage segments going to look like?
Yep.
You do have the risk of, well, we don't want to be MTV Light, but we also don't want to run off wrestling fans. We want to do something different. I'm not sure, for example, the production value on Being the Elite, which is just iPhone stuff with no mics, that's not going to fly on cable.
No,
TV.
they have mics. They have a boom up for some of the stuff.
Yes, some of the stuff. But man, I don't know. When's the last time you watched it? They still so much of it is still cameras over here, 3 people are standing over there, and they expect to, you know what I mean? So some of it isn't. And I don't think for a second that they would be silly enough to try to do that at all. I think that everything's going to be very production and top notch there. But that being said, it's how do you stand out, but also be familiar enough for fans of wrestling to be into it, and at the same time not come off as WWE
a knockoff.
A knockoff, exactly. Yep. So that was kind of interesting. Going back into some more history of early competitors of WWE. Number 7. The USWA.
So it was founded in 1989.
Look at that Stone Cold Steve Austin.
That's the stunning Steve Austin.
I think his first wife.
So you had Jerry Jarrett and Fritz von Erich, WCCW's Fritz von Erich, joining forces to try to create a promotion that could compete on a national level.
So WCW is already a thing. Which was just out of the time when it was a year after Turner bought WCW, and they felt that there was room in the national wrestling landscape
for another promotion. But still, they focused most of their shows in Dallas and Memphis.
Yeah,
so pretty much you were taking the Dallas territory WCCW, the Von Erich territory.
World class.
Taking Jerry Jarrett's Memphis territory, where Lawler was top guy forever, and just putting them together into one larger territory, and hoping via syndication and a TV deal with ESPN, they could spread nationally.
Yeah. However, just a year later, Fritz Von Erich pulled out.
Yeah, and then 2 years after that, they started working with WWF.
Yeah.
Talent exchanges.
Yeah. But this was kind of interesting. They ended up being sort of an early feeder system, early in the early 90s, a farm system, if you will, for the WWF, because they had guys like you saw in the thumbnail or in the little picture there. Steve Austin was there. Undertaker was there. Rock was there.
Flex Cavana,
that was his name. And of course, Glenn Jacobs was there. Apparently, they helped develop him into Kane after being fake Diesel and a dentist.
Isaac Yankem, DDS.
One of the interesting things about this was, so according to not just Jerry Jarrett, but a couple other people have said this. Vince McMahon was looking to bring him in, and Bruce Pritchard, apparently, who has no love for Jerry Jarrett, also says this isn't true.
Yeah.
But Jerry Jarrett and a couple other people claim that Jarrett was brought in around 94 or so as the person who might actually run WWF if Vince was in prison. Now, obviously, you have access to phones when you're in prison, so Vince it would have been all running through Jerry Jarrett to he would probably be like a manager, a high-level manager.
Yes.
But, if he was savvy enough, maybe USWA. I mean, they had several syndicated TV deals.
Yeah.
In fact, there was some sort of scandal involving somebody coming in trying to buy the company. So Jerry Jarrett sold his half of the company to Jerry Lawler for about $250,000. And then this is all from some article about the USWA. It's kind of interesting. I'll link this in the description too. It says around this time, a businessman in quotes, named Larry Burton wanted to purchase a portion of the USWA from Lawler with plans to sell it and all of its properties to Vince for around $6 million. Burton brought in a Cleveland businessman named Mark Selker to invest in the USWA and buy a stake in it. He put in $2 million to it. The Selker guy was also under the impression that USWA was a big deal because it had a bunch of TV deals.
Wow.
After a while, Jerry Jarrett decided to walk away. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That led to a bunch of, that just led to a bunch of lawsuits and stuff.
Yeah.
The article goes on. You can read it yourself. But yeah, so that was a big mess. But, if Jerry Jarrett had such a close relationship with Vince McMahon, which it seemed like he did, in the WWF, if Vince McMahon ended up going to prison, who knows what would have happened?
Yeah, Pritchard seems to think that Vince still would have run the company from jail
Yeah.
had he gone there, whereas other people have said no, that Jerry Jarrett was kind of being groomed to take the role of chairman, or not chairman at the time, but CEO, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
President probably, while Vince would be serving his time.
Maybe 20 years later, instead of getting NXT as the farm system, it would have been
USWA.
And then that could have been a true third brand, and everybody would be talking about USWA takeovers.
USWA.
Exactly. Or if you simply go back, if whatever revenue issues there were between Fritz Von Erich and Jerry Jarrett were settled, maybe they would have had a proper expansion into the country.
Well, and also so often when promoters who were experienced promoting shows in the territory days tried to work together, it was generally always short-lived.
Yeah, you want to talk about Pro Wrestling USA now?
No, we're going to talk in the AWA section for that.
Because these guys were involved in that too.
Yep. So it's interesting to see in the face of basically extinction, they still couldn't find a way to work together.
And literally, I think it was 2 months later, WCCW folded. 2 months later. I mean, maybe they're. I don't know. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah. Moving on. Number 6. The AWA.
We'll talk about it now,
yeah, we're going to talk about it right now.
So AWA had been around forever. 1960, in fact. Vern Gagne started the promotion because he wanted to make himself a champion.
Because everybody around the world wants to see a balding middle-aged guy as a champion. It worked for Hogan, I guess.
Yeah, I know.
But Gagne truly looked like somebody's dad.
Yeah, I know.
He totally looked like a dad.
Yeah, I know. But apparently he ran a pretty intense wrestling school, because Flair talks about that in his documentary, where they had to spend the whole day like carrying people upstairs and stuff like
Yeah,
that to get in wrestling shape, essentially.
Yeah, that bit of the Flair documentary is pretty crazy.
Yeah, where the people are passed out in the stairwell from carrying people up and down the stairs.
Right.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So it's AWA maybe more than any promotion that comes to mind was hit the hardest when it came to WWF and Vince going to all the territories and taking their top talent, because they lost Hogan, they lost Heenan, they lost Mean Gene. Let me see who else. Adrian Adonis, Ken Patera, Wendy Richter, Jesse Ventura. So they got hit real bad, like pretty much most of their top guys, and that's just kind of the first wave.
That was the first wave. Then there was guys like Scott Hall, Mr. Perfect.
Yeah, Kurt Hennig.
Yeah.
You can go on and on.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like AWA was really good at developing talent. And then, I guess an inadvertent feeder system. AWA. Inadvertent feeder system for WWF. So around the time that Vince started taking things national, you had a lot of the rival territorial promoters saying, all right, we got to work together to counter Vince and WWF. So what happened then was Pro Wrestling USA. Short-lived, lasted a year.
This is between Jerry Lawler,
Jerry
Jarrett, who both did Continental Wrestling Association,
Vern,
Ole Anderson of Georgia Championship Wrestling, and Jim Crockett Promotions.
And I think if you watch the AWA documentary that's on the network, they talk about this.
Okay.
I believe. Anyways, so they did a super show, which I guess is kind of the heyday of Pro Wrestling USA, called Super Clash. Super Clash. Took place in Chicago at Comiskey Field, late September 1985, about 21,000 people. Had Ric Flair versus Magnum TA for the NWA World Championship, and Rick Martel versus Stan Hansen for the AWA Championship.
Which one did Lawler?
Lawler had the AWA title at one point.
Okay.
And I guess they actually they had TV tapings in New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
Pro Wrestling USA did.
That's interesting.
But yeah, by 85, no one got along, especially Vern and Jim Crockett. Thing broke up, and then eventually all the Pro Wrestling USA shows were repackaged as AWA shows going forward. But it was still a cyclical thing where they developed talent like the Rockers. Scott Hall, you mentioned earlier. Vader spent some time at AWA.
And so much
Nasty
of this,
Boys. We mentioned Rick Martel, again, another guy that eventually went to WWF.
So much of those shows can be found on the WWE Network. Like their vault section on the WWE Network is a fascinating look at territory wrestling at all the regions.
Oh, yeah.
They have so much there.
And things got so bad for AWA, they put the belt on Larry Zbyszko.
Was he running around Vern Gagne's backyard?
89, yeah.
They found him at Lake Minnetonka.
It's like Vern was looking at his very valuable piece of land by the lake, ran to Larry Zbyszko.
Hey,
I can keep this out of eminent domain.
I know Bruno.
But at this time, I think in the late 80s, AWA had they moved their TV tapings, I believe, to the Showboat Casino in Las Vegas. And they had a show on ESPN.
Yeah. ESPN took in a lot. ESPN, they had USWA, they had GWF, not
GFW, wasn't it?
No, GWF.
Sorry, yes, GWF.
GFW is Baby Jarrett's thing.
Oh, there you
Global
go.
Force Wrestling. This was GWF.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
It's all very confusing.
It is all very confusing.
This is an interesting little bit because one of the many people who went through AWA on their way to other promotions was Eric Bischoff.
Yeah.
And so he appeared in this documentary called The Spectacular Legacy of the AWA, and he talks. Is that the one that's on the network?
I know they did an AWA documentary. I don't know if that's the same one.
Yeah, I don't know. But he talks about how
probably
Vern.
I don't remember this bit though.
Yeah, I don't either. I kind of do.
Okay.
Vern had this hunk of property near Lake Minnetonka. I guess was worth a pretty penny, and so it seems like he was borrowing money against that to keep the promotion afloat.
Yeah.
But anyway, there were some developers and some officials locally who wanted to develop it, and eventually it got eminent domained.
Yeah.
And so he didn't have a very valuable piece of land to leverage to fund his promotion. Therefore, AWA went away.
Yeah. Well, again, It's the kind of thing where it's a couple things. Number one, if I think some of these, regional promoters, some of these territories were content being territories, and they were fine because it was a tradition thing.
Oh, and also, I'm sure the business was great.
It was exactly, yeah. But then a shark like Vince Jr. comes along. I'm going to buy up TV time. I mean, in the case of, we'll talk about it when we get to Jim Crockett, but man, Vince was ruthless when it came to like counter programming and just torpedoing stuff.
Yep.
I mean, thank God he wanted to put Jim Crockett out of business because we got the Royal Rumble because of that. Anyways, moving on. Number 5. Ring of Honor.
Oh, I want that Kevin Steen shirt.
Yeah, that's a good looking shirt right there. I mean, really, that's an El Generico shirt.
I don't know if it's a flattering one, though.
Because it's his head on a chair.
Yeah, I know, but it's just his head. That's the issue.
Anyways, Ring of Honor is
That's why
great.
I think it's a Kevin Steen shirt.
We love Ring of Honor.
We do love Ring of Honor.
So many great stars come from Ring of Honor and then achieve higher success in WWE.
An inadvertent feeder system for WWE these days. ROH.
Yeah, so much so that Ring of Honor started sending like cease and desist to WWE.
Yeah.
For, stop talking to our people and they're under contract.
Yeah, I think it was the Kyle O'Reilly.
That was like last year.
Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, when Ring of Honor was bought by Sinclair?
2011.
2011.
And just recently, I think some executive at Sinclair, even to this day, admits they don't put enough money into it.
Well, yeah. Sinclair is huge. It's a massive media company.
Yeah.
With like stations all over the friggin' probably planet, but definitely the United States. So they could sink a ton of money into Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of makes me wonder with the All Elite Wrestling thing if that might happen, if Sinclair might be like, well, geez. I mean, it is always, it's felt like Sinclair hasn't really cared too much about, like, it's like, what do we care about Ring of Honor?
No. It just seems like another thing in their portfolio.
Yeah, right? Like, I don't really even get the relationship. Like, why would they have bought Ring of Honor?
I wonder if it was a situation similar to how Anthem bought Impact, where they needed programming for their networks.
That could be. But then they own like they buy local TV
and they
stations.
Don't, at least out here, they don't put Ring of Honor on those
here
networks.
In Sacramento, they don't. I still kind of wonder if that's an outlier.
Yeah, probably.
If they do it like in a lot of the other markets.
Could be.
I don't
and then
know.
for a while, Ring of Honor was on Destination here in the States.
That's right.
It was Impact, and then it was Ring of Honor back to back. But yeah, I mean, so much great talent has gone through Ring of Honor, going back as far as Daniel Bryan, Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Kevin Steen, El Generico. List goes on and on.
Yeah.
Adam Cole, baby.
Yeah.
Pretty much at this point, half of NXT.
So Kerry Silkin, the Ring of Honor owner up till 2011, I think. Well, yeah, when Sinclair bought, had this to say in that same article that spoke mainly about Lucha Underground. He said, "I tried my best." Saying about his efforts to establish Ring of Honor beyond its cult base. I was giving it my best shot. I was doing it with sincerity. Even though I knew there was the attrition of losing guys, other guys would rise and some would come back. But nobody is ever going to get the best of Vince McMahon. If you went to a WWE show, any WWE show, whether it's a WrestleMania or a house show in Kentucky, and you asked about Ring of Honor, maybe 5% of the people would know about it. They're not on these websites. It's a tiny world. Now, even that this article was written 5 years ago. There's been a pretty big sea change in independent wrestling since then. So, but as of 5 years ago, that was his state of mind when it came to Ring of Honor and how he gave it his best go to try to build it beyond its cult status. These days, things might be a little bit different.
We just saw the last couple of years where Ring of Honor had their best years in terms of attendance.
Yeah.
I think they were averaging not well over, but over 1,000 fans per show. They had their largest show ever, Supercard of Honor, this last year.
And the fact that WWE acknowledges Ring of Honor, they've used some Ring of Honor footage before.
Looks like they use a ton of that Nigel McGuinness documentary that's up today.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, is that up today or tomorrow?
Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, today. And I will guarantee, a heck of a lot more than 5% of the WWE audience knows about Ring of Honor now. It's going to be probably 95% of that audience. At least it's heard of Ring of Honor. So yeah, it's kind of interesting though, just to see, if All Elite Wrestling, if their emergence, if they get a good TV deal, if that would turn ahead at Sinclair and be like, man, if we pump more money into this and we become players simply by virtue of paying people a bunch of money and competing with WWE and All Elite Wrestling, can we get something similar? Can we do our own thing? I mean, I really, really, really appreciate Ring of Honor. Its presentation isn't necessarily my thing. Like, I've watched a couple of their weekly TV shows, and the wrestling is always stellar.
Yeah,
like it's like freaking, it's like 205 Live. Like, the wrestling is always stellar. It's just I don't find it terribly compelling. I'm kind of interested in their rebuild, though, because I really love Jeff Cobb.
Yeah, Jeff
like
Cobb's
Mark
great.
Haskins. I'm interested in PCO.
Brody King's good.
Brody King is I really like him.
And they still have Jay Lethal.
Yeah. So I am kind of, it is going to be very interesting. They're another company that's going to be very interesting to see where they end up 2 or 3 years from now, or even a year from now.
Let's see how they can follow up on the success of G1 Supercard at Madison Square Garden.
Right,
Mania
exactly,
weekend that sold out pretty much instantly.
Yeah, that is going to be very interesting right there. Number 4. TNA.
Oh, look at that. Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles.
Just probably a top-notch match
Heck yeah, man.
right there.
They had the ingredients, man. They really did. They had a wealth of young up-and-coming talent with just enough well-known veterans to get people to watch the show.
Man.
And they decided to go way overboard with the well-known veterans.
Yeah.
And focus on them, Hogan. And it probably torpedoed the product.
Probably. I mean, so Meltzer said in the newsletter, I think it was today when he was talking about All Elite Wrestling, he said TNA has always lost money except for a brief period where they broke even. I'm sure it was probably 2000 and maybe it was the Hogan times. I don't know. But I did look this up a couple days ago. TNA's best ratings, they reached 2.2 million viewers when Hulk Hogan debuted, which seemed it's one of those funny things where it's like, man, Hogan can get us that many views, but it's Hogan, and you know what you get with him, meaning he'll probably spell the end of the beginning of the end for your company. Because what happened when he came in, they started de-emphasizing the younger talent. All of a sudden, you got more Ric Flair matches. And AJ Styles, even in an interview, said, yeah, they didn't really know who we were. And they all of a sudden were in charge, like Bischoff and Hogan, which is
then Russo
terrible.
as well.
And then Russo at a certain point as well. So, and then they decided to try to compete on Monday nights against Raw. And I remember Booker T mentioning that. He was like, dude, I was like, what are they doing? Like, what are you doing? But talk about, like you said, having all the ingredients. And if you look back at clips from TNA back in like 2005, 2006, 2007, those crowds were hot. They really, really loved guys like Joe Daniels and AJ and Bobby Roode, Austin Aries. Low Key, I think, was there for a spell. It was like, man, they really loved. Well, for a while, Low Key was there for a while. They really loved those guys. They were great stars. Xavier Woods, was there. He came up there. Those X Division matches. What was that dude's name? Elix Skipper.
Oh yeah, that spot off the top of the cage was insane.
Was one of the craziest spots ever. Of course, that's where much later, that's where the broken stuff went down. But they had the ingredients. It was just whether it was the business or they just didn't. It's so difficult, man. We're going to talk about WCW obviously later in the episode.
Yeah,
but WWF during the Attitude Era, they kind of, because of the new generation, Vince, I mean, you got to kind of admit, Vince went all in on that new generation, It's like, let's sweep out. Savage wanted to stay, and he said, no, you're out.
Yeah.
And he went all in on his young talent.
Yeah.
Sink or swim,
Unfortunately, he didn't package or market his new product in any way correctly.
Right, but eventually for the Attitude Era, he realized, man, I can't do things the old way. I have to come up with a new way.
Maybe he wouldn't have been comfortable doing Attitude Era stuff if he hadn't gone through the process of the new generation.
But trying to manage, because you look at WCW, you look at TNA, which is what we're talking about right now, and the parallels between that and WCW are so evident.
Oh yeah.
Because how do you properly manage to get your young guys over using your veteran talent, knowing that veteran talent, they like to stay on top.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to pass the torch unless you have nothing left to do and you have plenty of money in the bank. Nobody likes to pass that torch.
Well, Sting was in TNA for a while. I don't think he would have a problem putting other younger guys over.
I think he probably put plenty of people over. But one guy, it's like, and on top of that, it's not just dealing with egos. creatively, how do you do it to elevate those young guys to the point where you really believe they're main event level?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When Jericho was in WCW, we loved him. We loved him so much.
Oh, yeah.
But creatively, if he was up there in a program with...
I mean, he wanted to do a program with Goldberg, and they wouldn't let him do it.
Goldberg is actually a really good example of a young guy who like was believable on the main event level. But could anybody have taken what WCW's product was, which was spotlighting veterans, Hall, Nash, Hogan, Sting, Flair, and bring guys like Raven, Benoit, Dean Malenko, Booker T, Scott Steiner up to that main event level in a realistic way where you're like, man, I'm tuning in to see those guys.
It seemed like there was instances where they were, but then nothing would really ever happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you have someone like DDP,
right?
Who granted wasn't young; he was 35.
And
before
Savage was happy putting him over.
Yeah. Where everybody saw something in him. I mean, granted, he was friends with, Hall and Nash and a lot of those guys, so that probably helped.
Yeah. No, that's actually a very, very good point because all it took was you're right, man. All it took was one really, really good feud where the veteran wanted to put the guy over and make him look good. And from then on, you believe DDP is a main event guy
totally.
in WCW.
Yeah, because Savage had that cachet.
Yeah.
He was former champion both in WWF and WCW.
But I guess my main point is it probably isn't easy, even creatively speaking, to take your young guys and say, okay, let's believably put them in the main event spot. And I know plenty of like Bob Roode, Austin Aries, all those guys, they held the big belt. But it's like, obviously...
Did they ever topple Hogan to get there, or Sting, or Flair, or any of those other guys? I don't think so.
And, I mean, were the ratings there to sort of prove it out? It's like, did they... It's one thing to give them the title. It's another thing to... You need the proof in the pudding, and that's the ratings.
Yeah.
They need to be draws, So, they were never able to really put that together, and they made some questionable decisions business wise, and then they just sort of they're still around. Their Impact, somehow,
some way they're still around.
Anyways, moving on. Number 3, New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now they just sort of started trying to compete last year. After being around for a very long time.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the WWE of Japan, basically.
Oh, yeah.
They're the biggest thing in Japan.
The second largest promotion in the world.
Yeah, exactly. But, in terms of competing for WWE, they've been able to compete in some ways. They've captured, to some degree, the zeitgeist of the wrestling world with Bullet Club merchandise everywhere.
Yeah.
Building the Young Bucks and Kenny to this, superstar status. And then, coming over here to the United States and, being able to draw crowds that probably could have in their initial thing. I think they probably could have sold out 10,000 easily.
Oh, the first show?
Their first show.
The first two shows, I should say, yeah.
They decided to run 1,500.
Yeah, like 2,000,
over 2 days.
Yeah.
But
I think more than just New Japan trying to come over here and make headway in the North American market, they are actively competing with WWE for talent.
Yes, sure, yeah.
So we've heard they were both WWE and New Japan were in talks with Bobby Lashley. We hear that New Japan would be interested in bringing back some of the talents who had already left to go to WWE, like Gallows and Anderson, like Shinsuke Nakamura,
and even maybe AJ Styles.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of thing that if you didn't think of them as competition, you wouldn't think that's realistic, but we do feel it's realistic. It's like, yeah, they'd go there. I mean, Chris Jericho, that was a huge deal.
Yep.
And that was like, oh man, a guy from WWE who's a WWE mainstay can go there, be very successful. And, you got to give it up to Jericho, who's just completely ahead of his time.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, New Japan,
they have a quality product and they have the resources. To compete with WWE.
Yeah. What do you think it would take for them to start getting to the level where WWE, I mean, WWE probably already, obviously what do you think it would take for people to think of New Japan the way they thought of WCW back in the day? Bigger TV deal for one thing.
Yeah.
Bigger deal than Access.
Yeah.
I think there's probably, some, these days, maybe not. Losing, here's the thing. They need the representation that Bullet Club provided for English-speaking audiences, I think is a necessity. I know they've got plenty of guys there like Juice Robinson. You got Switchblade. You got, hopefully, I mean, that's one thing for New Japan is that hopefully Kenny will be able to still work there if he's signed with AEW. And because Kenny was vital to their westward expansion, and Jericho apparently part of his deal is he gets to still work with New Japan. But you need those guys who, can speak the language that's primarily spoken over here. I think you kind of need that if you're going to continue to have a successful westward expansion.
Yes.
So, I mean, dude, I love Okada. I think he
is the best
wrestler in the world.
He is the best.
Naito, one of the best wrestlers in the world. But
Tanahashi, go ace.
But if you want to bring in new fans, the Elite, that was how you did it. That's totally how they did it. So they need to keep on reloading. They need to keep on bringing people over from WWE to restock for that aspect of their expansion.
Yeah.
Number 2.
2.
Jim Crockett Promotions.
That's a heck of a blazer and mustache there on Tony Schiavone.
Dude, he looks like $1 million right there.
You want to grow a mustache like that?
Oh, easily. That'd be great.
Let's do it. Let's grow a mustache. Oh, you're going to have a mustache. You need to grow a mustache.
Yeah, man. I don't know if that's happening. Anyways, Jim Crockett Promotions. Talk about...
So they really started competing after the whole Pro Wrestling USA thing kind of didn't work.
Yeah.
So what happened is Crockett bought out Ole Anderson. His territory, Georgia, and then he was reelected president of the National Wrestling Alliance. And so he kind of consolidated the power as he could under him to try to run a national promotion, best of his ability, still roughly within the confines of the territory system.
Yeah.
So he had more or less control of the NWA title. It was on Ric Flair all the time. And so is this interesting battle then between Crockett, who was running on TBS. He got that. They got that
Saturday night time.
Yeah, they got
slot,
the NWA. I guess I was going to say got the time slot back. It was Georgia Championship Wrestling when Vince bought it out on Black Saturday,
and then it completely got killed
because the viewers they wanted their Georgia Championship Wrestling.
All of a sudden one day, imagine like watching WWE. All of a sudden one day, it's a bunch of people that you've never heard of, have no idea what's going on. Storylines are completely different, and it's like, wait, I wanted to watch SmackDown.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
That's what happened.
So they're back on TBS.
We think your wrestling is passe.
Imagine if you dropped that promo.
You should have dropped that promo.
And so there's this interesting battle going on throughout the mid-late 80s between Jim Crockett and Vince of programming and counter-programming to essentially screw over the other promoter. So was it the first Starrcade or something?
I think, yeah.
Oh, no, Starrcade 87. Which used to take place Thanksgiving weekend, around Thanksgiving. That's why we have Survivor Series.
Yes.
Just stick it at Crockett. And so Crockett started running Clash of Champions to counter first, I think, WrestleMania 4 or 5. And then it was on free.
4, yeah.
It was on free basic cables on TBS.
Yeah.
And so they'd run that counter to WrestleManias. And I think pretty much from there on out, they'd always have a Clash of Champions on for a while, Clash of Champions on versus a WWF pay-per-view.
Yeah. Yeah, and one, the Thanksgiving thing. So Crockett decided to move Starrcade's starting time to Thanksgiving afternoon, not evening. The WWF then threatened cable companies if they chose to air Starrcade at all, the WWF would not offer them any future pay-per-views, including the soon-to-come Survivor Series and next year's Mania 4.
That's insane.
So that... Wow.
And then WWF had the first Royal Rumble on USA, again, free, to go up against a Crockett pay-per-view, Bunkhouse Stampede. Then, for WrestleMania 4 and the first Clash of Champions.
When it was all said and done, though, all this back and forth programming, counter-programming, it basically just left Crockett bankrupt.
Yeah.
So he sold Jim Crockett Productions to Ted Turner in November of 1988, and it was renamed first to Universal Wrestling Corporation, which is a crap name, and then they changed it to
WCW.
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 Yeah. And then 1988, We got the Turner Broadcasting System, WCW, number one. WCW. There it is. They actually did compete with WWF.
Yeah, they were winning.
They were actually winning for 83 straight weeks.
They were winning.
They
won.
won.
Of Eric Bischoff's podcast.
They won. They got Lex Luger. Whoever gets Luger wins. That's what it is. Whoever gets Luger wins. Right? Not right?
Yes.
How it works? Well, they got Hogan. They got...
Really,
that was weird, right? Hogan left. He was going to retire. And they were like, no,
he was
come
busy
back.
making a TV show, and WCW said, here's a bunch of money.
What was that show?
Thunder in Paradise.
Thunder in Paradise.
Thunder in Paradise.
So, yeah, they totally did compete. They showed that it could happen.
Thanks to the NWO.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then Vince McMahon was like, man, I really need to actually be creative and stuff.
And be with the times.
So he did the Attitude Era, and that worked. And then WCW went out of business.
Because they were horribly mismanaged. Everybody was there. A lot of people there with enormously bloated contracts. They had the favored nation clause in there where someone came in and made more money than them.
Ooh, that's a tag team name we should use.
What, favored nation?
For like WCW.
Okay.
Fun.
So their contract would go up.
They're always in contract negotiations against themselves.
I know. So like some hot free agents on the market, and Kevin Nash calls, or Scott Hall, or probably Hogan calls and says, "Brother, what kind of numbers you floating around?" And then they'll tell him, it's like, "Oh, go for 15% more, brother."
Yeah,
knowing
that
he would have to get his salary would match, if not best that.
Probably best it
by 10%.
Exactly. And there was no
there's
discipline.
no vision. Yeah, no vision, no discipline.
Vision, and there were no consequences for locking people in closets, like allegedly Hall and Nash did to Eric Bischoff when he fired X-Pac.
Imagine if someone tried to lock Vince in the closet.
That ain't happening.
He'd throw down right there.
He would probably murder that person on the spot.
But maybe Bischoff got his revenge by trying to make the NWO a biker gang who rode on the back of garbage trucks for some reason.
You're going to put me in a closet? Fine. Hey, today we're going to ride on the back of garbage trucks.
We're going to show up to the pay-per-view in some new transportation. Oh, some Hummer limos or something cool like that.
It's 30 degrees Fahrenheit outside? Yeah, you're going to ride on...
back of a garbage truck. What?
It was so confusing.
Yeah, you're going to be a biker gang from now on.
Yeah.
None of us ride motorcycles.
Yeah. Eric. Well, you can ride garbage trucks. I'll ride a motorcycle. I have a leather jacket at home.
Look, my shirt's tucked into my dad jeans. We're cool, aren't we?
Can we get Zabisco in the NWO? No. What about Dusty? Okay. So yeah, they actually did compete with WWF, and then because they tried to do that, they went out of business.
Well, then, too much money being spent. They brought in Vince Russo. Creatively, it was already in bad shape and just went even further
Well,
down
yeah,
the
but
toilet.
here's the thing. Like, Bischoff was on the precipice of buying it, and then one dude at Time Warner after the merger decided I don't want wrestling on TV. I think it sucks.
Yeah.
So they... Like if that one guy was a big mark for Ric Flair, WCW might still be around today.
Survived, or if any other television network was willing to bring on wrestling.
But again, back then the advertisers didn't believe in it, and I wonder if that was the reason why they didn't want it. Why that dude didn't, or the Eric something on it didn't want it on TV.
Oh, because the advertiser dollars wasn't.
Maybe?
I mean, especially when they're. I think, granted, at that point in 2001, they were. I don't know how underwater they were in terms of bloated contracts.
Oh, if you look at their, didn't they lose like $60 million in a year at one point or something like that?
There's no amount of ad revenue that's going to make up for that.
Yeah, you look at that on your books.
Well, Super Bowl, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's how it goes. But but even in their boom period, I don't think they were like making money. I think they were always losing money. Like you said, bloated contracts.
Yep.
So, but anyways, it's also like I said, creatively, it's a tough thing to get young talent over to the point where they're drawing.
Yeah, WWF at the time managed to do it wonderfully.
They just knew how to do it. They knew how to do it, and basically, it's because all they had to work with was young talent. So
once
that's what
Brett was out the door,
yeah, exactly.
It was just Undertaker, pretty much.
Just Undertaker, exactly.
Was the real holdover. Oh, to a certain degree, Shawn Michaels, but he kind of got hurt.
Yeah.
Before the Attitude Era really kicked off under Stone Cold's watched.
Yeah. So anyways, fun episode of Countout. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. I'm sure we got some facts wrong, but whatever. It's kind of our thing. Thanks for watching so much. Till next time, we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.